Paul, thank you again. Thank you for a fabulous presentation. And I encourage everybody to please, as Paul mentioned, download the white paper. There is so much information. There is so much relevant data and learnings, and a lot to absorb. And but speaking of sports, so you grew up in the UK. What teams were you rooting for back home?
This is great. So I actually grew up in Africa, and there were some great soccer teams like Man United, Liverpool, a lot of red teams. There was this team called Arsenal that I kind of knew about. I grew up in Kampala, Uganda. I was born in South Africa. But when I landed in London, Arsenal were doing really well. So I've been an Arsenal fan for kind of circa 14 years. They're owned by the Kroenke family. I'm also a little bit bi-coastal. I live in New York City, but I spend a lot of time in Los Angeles. So I've kind of been a bit smitten by the LA Rams. I love the SoFi Stadium, so I kind of vicariously follow. I'm a bit neutral, but I'm an LA. But then I'm a fanatical Knicks fan and a Yankees fan, so don't judge me. I love Formula One, but I don't follow any team. I follow Lewis Hamilton and Lando Norris. I just love all sports, and probably like all of you in the room, you know, but probably my endearing passion is this team called Arsenal, who were second in the Premier League. We beat Liverpool, who were number one. This Sunday, we beat them 3-1.
Awesome. Okay, so getting to the white paper, you know, so much of what you found and discovered resonated with me. So I've got a teenage son. He's 18, but you know he'll frequently be in his room with the door closed. You know, I'll walk in. What are you doing? Oh, I'm watching the Laker game. I'm watching it on his iPhone. You know, I'm downstairs watching a football game. So, as a media buyer, how do you reach people, different audiences, different demographics, across different platforms? What is
Yeah, I mean, I think almost like everything, but sport in particular is so omni-channel, isn't it? I mean, you're trying to connect the dots. So the statistic about, you know, most fans are concurrently on a social feed at the same time as they're consuming it. They're consuming it in different ways, as we know. You know, it's quite a confusing market at the moment for consumers because of the cost of where, you know, literally finding your team or literally trying to find it. But you're 100% right. I find myself actually literally wandering the house on my phone, watching the sporting event, and then going into the living room. So I think it's all generations, but you're right, that new generation, Gen Z, are consuming it in the way that they want to consume it. It's probably one of the only last long-form pieces of entertainment that they're interested in. They're not watching West Wing repeats. They're watching snackable content. I mean, clearly that's the YouTube generation. But then they'll go to YouTube. They'll go to the social platform. But your son is not atypical. Your son is typical. And I think that's the other thing, is that we now have devices in every location in the home or out of the home. Again, sport is one of those universal places where people meet in bars. Finally, Nielsen and people like that are correctly measuring the out-of-home viewing of sports as well. So, you know, you're right. I mean, I don't think people meet in a bar to watch the Grammys. Maybe you'll have a Grammys party. And don't get me wrong, the Grammys did really well this year. Bravo, because we need more of that. The audiences were up. But most of those award shows are down. The Oscars are down. I mean, all those places that we used to look at. Yeah.
So, you know, we were here 3 or 4 weeks ago for CES, and I did the floor tour, and as you were saying this, it kind of reminds me, there's so many more platforms, devices, channels, and ways to consume, and people are consuming more media and entertainment than ever. So there's more media to buy as an advertiser, and you're working with some of the biggest brands in the world, Hyundai, McDonald's, etc. Like, how is it that you're gravitating towards sports? What is it about sports that delivers? That you're getting ROI on those ad dollars?
And obviously, yes, we all do this in service of something, in service of brand and sales quite often, reputation. So they're picking it apart. I guess the first part of the question is, in this omni-channel world, when you're looking at sport as a platform, you're looking at everything from can we be official, can we actually buy media, what's our social strategy, what's our editorial strategy, are we at a national level, we could be even at a global level, are we at a national level, are we at a local level? Because sports still is one of those wonderful local phenomenon. At the end of the day, you know, quite a lot of fans are in a location. And even if you, obviously, some teams and some sports obviously transcend it, but it is still one of the last bastions of local, and we might come on to that. But what I was going to say is analytics and analysis and attribution is really critical in the sports arena, because it doesn't come cheap. I mean, you know...
so you're paying a premium,
yeah.
Which is live, you're paying a premium for engagement, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, so you lay in, factor in fandom,
yeah.
The fact that people are emotionally connected to their teams, right? You're willing to pay a premium for that, right? There's brand equity in the local team. There's also, you know, if you ask my son, like, hey, why do you root for the New York Giants? He would say, oh, because my dad did. And I would say, yeah, because my dad did. It's like generational.
It's generational, yeah. I mean, people are born and die. When they die, they actually have, maybe they'll actually get buried in the Giants.
Yeah. Crazy.
It's crazy.
So,
I mean, there's nothing like that.
Right. So, you know, Super Bowl, Kansas City Chiefs, San Francisco Giants,
Yeah.
NFL. But let's not forget, I mean, what about college sports, right? What about college sports? You know, if you really want to get grassroots, and you could argue, like, I went to that college.
Yeah.
That's even more.
Yeah.
I went to UT, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm even more engaged. I went to those games.
Well, I know this is so funny. A client of mine who was born in and grew up in California, but went to Ohio State, the Buckeyes. And I guess it was 4 years of his life.
Right.
But it is the #1 passion that he has in his life. He literally will pay almost anything
To go.
And he actually has one of those tailgate. I never knew this phenomenon. You actually get, like, we have this particular place at Ohio State, and he's got that. And he grew up in California, and it was only 4 years of his life, but it defines him. But you're right, that's fandom.
Yeah. So
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, too specific. Brand X, it just happens to be an automotive company. Has brand $1 billion.
Yeah.
How would you say this much is going towards national, or i.e. NFL? This much is going to be going towards college. And okay, my message on CBS is one thing. My message on the Atlanta TV station is different.
Yeah, and actually, I'll bridge your previous question about ROI. You know, sports can be quite complex, and obviously, I'll give you one example. Kia is a client of ours. They've been a 15-year sponsor of the NBA. So I think on any survey, they're the #1 associated brand with the NBA. They're obviously, we have a signage at every game. But, so that's obviously something that predates Canvas. It's a long-term commitment to integrate with the NBA, but also for fandom. But the other thing is that the Kia is also, so the ROI works at the national level, so we're obviously then evaluating the value of that sponsorship. Obviously, we then buy media around, obviously, NBA, but also then what we have, I hope I've got the statistic right, I think Kia has 15 teams across the country that we actually have sponsor deals with. So the ROI also then goes down to how do we activate at the local level, which obviously if you think about when you sell a car, we obviously have a whole dealer network, how you then obviously work on what we call that tier 2 and the integrations that we have around that fandom. So your ROI works in multiple ways. So obviously there's overall brand preference you might be looking at. You might be looking at obviously intent, and sometimes search intent is a great common denominator, so we're looking at that. We look at obviously a lot of metrics at the national level. We're obviously looking at the audience as where we're getting obviously in a world where obviously linear audiences are going down, streaming's going up, sport is the giant in the room. Almost every sporting event is up year on year. The NFL was up 7% last year. The average audience was 17.6 million, against a backdrop of the previous year being a record year of audiences. So that's just the NFL, good old NFL. But you know, the ROI works at all levels. So I think you're looking at a very complicated ecosystem of different KPIs. Now you have a local KPI, and
in the case of the automotive example, local might be the dealer network.
Yeah, of course.
Or in the case of QSR, it might be the franchisees. So you can get a righteous balance between national and local. Local, there are the teams, the NFL teams, there are the college teams, there are different tiers. Yeah. And that's what you're.
And even at a global level, I mean, if you were a global sponsor in a prior life, and in fact at Canvas, we also have involvement in FIFA World Cup, so we are working at a global level. Hyundai Group are one of the principal sponsors of FIFA, which has been fantastic. We obviously activate globally, but we activate locally. But the complexity is somewhat similar to a national. You've obviously got this global agreement, but then how you bring it to life in America is going to be very different than how you bring it to life in Brazil. FIFA is still not the #1 sport. I mean, everywhere in the world, soccer is easily #1, maybe with the exception of maybe China and India. India is cricket. But everywhere else, it's #1. Whereas in America, actually part of our job is to promote soccer. And, you know, we have
soccer is making inroads.
And by the way, the women's team, again, have been on fire for years, and we will obviously
talk about women's sports. While you're on soccer, we've got World Cup in 26, right?
Yeah.
So that should be, is that something that is one of the world's largest media buyers we'll be looking at in Thailand?
Yes. Yeah, well, again, we do have clients, so yes, we're looking at it. And of course, what's going to be a big bonanza for America is not only have we got FIFA coming to America, and in fact it was announced that the FIFA World Cup final is going to be at Met Live Stadium.
Right.
I think it has a capacity of over 85,000. It's hosted some of the biggest events.
26.
And yeah, so we're going to obviously have that, but we're going to have the Olympics. So little old Canvas, about 8 years ago, we worked with the Wasserman Group, and we actually worked on the bid. I mean, obviously, humbly, we were one of the contributors to the bid for the LA 2024, if you remember. That was the bid we were after. But it's now obviously going to come to LA, which is going to be so exciting. Obviously, the Cronkies are rubbing their hands with glee as the SoFi Stadium is going to get juicy rights there. But yes, on FIFA, I think it's really exciting, both for the men's game and the women's game, and connecting the dots. And again, you know, we live in a multicultural society, so obviously some of the biggest fans of soccer aren't necessarily Caucasian. You know, they obviously come in all colours, and obviously, again, the coverage, Hispanic coverage of soccer has grown and grown and grown. Liga Mexico is obviously a huge viewing opportunity, but definitely we're looking at some really exciting activations here in America, obviously, for FIFA and the Olympics to come. And of course, this is an Olympics year. This is NBC's obviously already promoting the hell out of it, but this summer we're going to be in Paris, aren't we? So it's going to be really exciting, and we've got some plans for our clients in the Olympics as well, which is particularly exciting.
Fabulous, okay. Well, we're almost out of time. I'd love to take 1 or 2 questions. Is that from the audience? Anybody? Your opportunity? Ryan McCauley?
Hey guys. Following our conversation last week, we were talking about how the NFL is really single-handedly keeping terrestrial TV alive, right? There's a lot of people saying that right now. What do you say to your clients who can't afford necessarily a NFL type budget for their commercials and their outreach? What kind of advice do you give those people?
Yeah, no, it's great. The question is, you know, sports, in particular NFL, are keeping kind of viewing alive. I think that's a little bit of an overstatement. I do think that obviously we're still consuming, but commercial minutage. Obviously, we have a very strong streaming market. Obviously, Netflix was a huge grenade in the broadcast market. But how do we advise clients? Yeah, not all clients come with a mega billion-dollar budget. So I think sport can be a platform. It can be something that you can activate in fandom. You can obviously be a part of the conversation without necessarily being a big sponsor. So I think that's one part of the answer, but certainly I think almost every brand, you don't have to be a Nike. By the way, Nike are the last guys that, I would want to go and talk to. I think, you look at the State Farm example, I think it's about having a vision and a long-term vision. They had that long-term vision. Kia had a long-term vision about your involvement in the sports, and that, I think, then transcends the transactional year-by-year cost increases. But you are kind of right. These are some of the largest and long-lasting opportunities in the media marketplace. But it goes across all niche sports. So again, Ryan, I would say get involved in women's sports. The cost of entry is much, much lower. Get involved in, I know you're a huge tennis aficionado, get involved in that. I mean, obviously the US Open is huge, but what about all the other tennis events? And it really does depend on, your demographic, where you think you're going to have that great brand affinity, and what is your commitment. And I think maybe this is where it goes beyond just a media buy. You're looking at the way you integrate in the sport all the way through the experiential. So, that it kind of takes an omni-channel approach. But definitely the elephant in the room is that sports is dominating the media landscape, and it doesn't, any analyst will tell you it's outstripping their predictions every year.
Wow.
Things like the NFL's go
Sports,
up.
in closing, sports, we're wrapping up, has momentum. No
Yeah.
question. It's probably the most exciting place in media right now. What do they say? Follow the money. This is where the ad dollars are going. The Super Bowl is sold out, I understand.
Oh, it was completely sold out. And there's a whole new generation of brand marketeers in the Super Bowl.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Of our challenger brands.
Yeah.
So predictions. Two incredible teams. It's an incredible matchup. We have the Swiftie factor. We didn't even get into that. But,
we've got that in the report as well. The Swiftie factor.
The over and under. Not on the score, the TV ratings. What are the over and under on TV ratings?
I predict that because it's in Vegas, can you believe that it's never, the Super Bowl's never, I mean, they didn't, until 4 years ago, have an NFL stadium and team. But it's kind of incredible to think that Super Bowl 58, for the first time, is in Vegas. So it's got the Vegas factor over and above two amazing teams. Maybe they're not the #1 and #2 teams, but I think any neutral is going to want to watch this matchup. So my prediction is, I would say it could be +5 over last year, which was a record year. And global coverage, I think, and you're going to hear from Tim Ellis, who is amazing, the CMO of the NFL, one of the most genius marketeers, ex-Activision. I ask him the same question, but my prediction is it's going to be a close game, and it's going to be +5, which would be an incredible increase over, and it would be a record.
Can I bet on that? DraftKings +5 on the ratings.
All right. A wager it.
Oh.
A round of applause.